overwhelming majority of pregnant mothers are very careful with how they treat their bodies so that they can ensure the best outcomes for their infants. I know that's what I did. Many of us avoided medications, caffeine, definitely alcohol and nicotine, and not just during pregnancy, but also during breastfeeding, because what mothers ingest ends up in the baby. And if your baby's relying on you for nutrition, you want to make sure that they are getting it. If what you eat ends up in your breast milk and the medications you take end up in your breast milk, you're careful. Anecdotally, one time I had curry and then I swear to God, my infant, my fussy baby burped curry at me. And there's obviously some science to back up my anecdote. A mother's dietary choices can influence a baby's tastes as an adult because what you eat ends up in the breast milk. That's why I was so horrified to see this University of Regina professor promoting chemically inducing mammary secretions, I'm not even going to call it breast milk, in transgender people so that they could pretend, I guess, to breastfeed an infant. University of Regina nursing professor Dr. Shela Herani says she is committed to, quote, breaking barriers and supporting LGBTQ plus breastfeeding journeys. A video posted on the professor's X and YouTube pages states there exists a, quote, common misconception that only cisgender women can breastfeed, end quote. The professor's video, titled Supporting LGBTQ plus Breastfeeding Journey, says there is discrimination and bias from healthcare providers, lactation consultants, and breastfeeding educators for LGBTQ plus parents. Take a look at this video.
It is a common misconception that only cisgender women can breastfeed, but transgender men and non-binary parents can also breastfeed their babies with the help of hormone therapy and lactation support. Breastfeeding can help LGBTQ+ parents bond with their babies and create a strong emotional connection, regardless of their gender identity or sexual orientation. LGBTQ+ families may face stigma and discrimination when breastfeeding in public, leading to feelings of isolation and exclusion from breastfeeding support groups and resources. LGBTQ+ parents may experience challenges accessing healthcare providers who are knowledgeable and sensitive to their unique needs and circumstances when seeking lactation support and guidance. LGBTQ+ parents who have undergone gender-affirming surgeries or hormone therapy may have specific concerns and questions related to breastfeeding, and may require specialized care and support from healthcare providers. LGBTQ+ parents may need to navigate complex legal and social barriers when establishing parentage and custody rights for their children, which can impact their ability to make informed decisions about breastfeeding and infant feeding. LGBTQ+ parents may face discrimination and bias from healthcare providers, lactation consultants, and breastfeeding educators, which can undermine their confidence and ability to breastfeed successfully. LGBTQ+ parents may benefit from connecting with other LGBTQ+ families and seeking out inclusive and affirming breastfeeding support groups and resources to find community and solidarity. LGBTQ+ parents may choose to use chest feeding or other gender-affirming language to describe their breastfeeding experience, honoring their unique identities and experiences as parents. LGBTQ+ parents who experience challenges or concerns with breastfeeding should seek out knowledgeable and affirming healthcare providers, lactation consultants, and support groups to access the resources and support they need to breastfeed successfully.
A University of Regina webpage says Professor Herani is an international board-certified lactation consultant. So I drilled down on some of the resources this expert links to in her video. She linked to resources from Lactation League, which has been completely colonized by activists. This nonsense of supporting, quote, transgender parents, not mothers, has been going on at Lactation League since about 2012. Lactation League used to be an organization which supported and normalized breastfeeding. But now they're making it anything but normal and quite possibly dangerous. They even call it chest feeding. Look at this. Trans men, trans women, and non-binary individuals may choose to breastfeed or chest feed their babies. You do not need to have given birth to breastfeed or chest feed, as we can also see in the experiences of those nursing adopted babies. Retired Canadian LLL, that's Lactation League, leader and transgender dad Trevor McDonald writes that it is equally important to note that some trans people experience severe gender dysphoria when breast or chest feeding, and that they may decide not to nurse their babies for mental health reasons. Trans parents choosing to breast or chest feed and those choosing to suppress lactation and bottle feed may require the support of breastfeeding counselors or lactation professionals. It is also the case that some parents with gender dysphoria choose to pump and bottle feed their milk to their baby. Whether you are pregnant, nursing your baby, pumping your milk, using donor milk, mixed feeding, or considering your options, Lactation League is here for you. Please note that some of the links in this post will take you to articles or websites where you may notice gendered language. Anyway, now you know what the state of motherhood is at this organization and other organizations like it that are supposed to be helping mothers. Let's get into the advice from Dr. Herani. One of the medical protocols she linked to used to induce mammary secretions in people who have exposed themselves to cross-sex hormones is the use of spironolactone. It's made by our friends at Pfizer. Pfizer, as we know, over the last 4 years has not been all that great at admitting the side effects of some of their medications. Still, they are very clear in this instance that long-term exposure or extended exposure of spironolactone to an infant is not something that anybody should be doing. So I sent an email to the good professor and I told her exactly the story that I was working on. I wrote, the resources you link to in your YouTube video suggest using spironolactone to stimulate breast milk. What, if any, long-term studies are you relying on to prove the safety of spironolactone for the neonate? That's the newborn baby. For reference, the manufacturer does not assure safety for long-term use during breastfeeding. And of course, I heard absolutely nothing back in the last 48 hours, so that's why we're here. And I didn't expect that I would, because she might have to admit that any sort of extended exposure of an infant baby boy, or girl for that matter, to this hormone meant to induce breast secretion in biological men or in biological women who have been taking cross-sex hormones can be gravely dangerous and damaging to the infant. And if we admit then that spironolactone can be dangerous to the infant, then we must admit that activists are doing all of this to feed their egos, to feed the emotional wants of an adult. The next logical conclusion is that these people are putting the ego of an adult above the health and welfare of a helpless child. This means that the vulnerable child is being used in some instances as a fetish prop in an adult fantasy instead of being treated as a living creature created in the image of the divine and worthy of proper care, respect, and love. Live your life. I don't care. I might even pray for you, but leave the little ones alone. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. I don't care how an adult wants to live their life, but I want them to leave the little children alone. And yet, radical sex activists are working as children to indoctrinate your children in the classroom. To sign our petition against this, please go to stopclassroomgrooming.com.